We want to thank Nilesh Sharma for arranging a software program for the translation of our classes into multiple languages, not only live, but also hopefully online on our YouTube channel, Hare Krishna Society, which is broadcasting over 400 classes, previous classes, of our programs. The idea is that all of us have different schedules and routines, and this will accommodate them according to their schedule. Because everyone has a schedule every day, whether it's a work schedule or household duties, etc. And actually, when we look at initiation of a new member as a Prabhupada disciple, one of the requirements is to submit a schedule of how much time they spend each day reading the books, how much time they spend chanting their japa, how much time they spend in devotional service directly to the mission of Lord Chaitanya under the direction of the Hare Krishna Society Prabhupada Disciples Association. It's part of the requirement for us. Different people have different ways of performing the Ritvik initiation. It's something that people interpret according to their own particular level of realization or understanding. Yes, they're entitled to that. But there is a formula that was based on Prabhupada's original directions given to myself personally and to Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu while Prabhupada was personally with us. And you've seen different letters that I've received from Prabhupada where he was accepting people for initiation. Now, yesterday, I mentioned about a person that was saying they got initiated in a dream. Very interesting. And I got some comments from some Prabhus in that regards. So what is the value of a dream? Oh, well, someone drew a quote, oh, this dream or that dream, or Krishna came to you in a dream, or Prabhupada showed up in a dream. I think I had Prabhupada come to me in a dream about a year ago. I think it lasted about 3 seconds. And you know what he said, Vijaya Pandit, to me in the dream? Just keep going. That's all he said. Then my mind floated off into the world of dreams. How important is a dream? Well, it's not that important, and it's not reliable information on how to get initiation. There are direct instructions in the Shastras on how to take initiation, the rules and regulations that are required to be followed by the individual in order to show serious discipline. For example, the person that I mentioned that said they got initiated in a dream doesn't follow the regulated principles. Well, how do you get initiated? And a lot of people don't chant their rounds. They don't have verifiable proof that they chant their rounds. Well, how can you get initiated if you don't chant 16 rounds? You don't follow the regulated principles. And you don't read daily the Shastras and study them. Have you passed any tests? Look, if you're going to become qualified as a dental surgeon, you have to go to the university, Nilesh, as you know, and you have to pass so many different tests. It's not that you automatically get rubber stamped, oh, now he's a dental surgeon or a doctor or a lawyer. No. What is the highest position in this society for a living entity? What is the highest position? The highest position is to be a servant of a pure devotee of Krishna in the line of succession from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's no higher qualification, but whimsically, people make up these concocted philosophies without guidance, either from a Diksha Guru or a Siksha Guru. A Siksha Guru is also important, very important. In the temples, Prabhupada looked upon his temple presidents as Siksha Guru. He sent a letter to me, make sure you follow all the principles and set the example for all of the people in the temple. That's how he instructed me personally. It's a big responsibility, actually. So all of us here in this group, we have the responsibility to be Siksha. There's not a lot of us, but we have a responsibility to set the example, Trilok. Yes. And if you do, you'll become blissful. You'll become happy because you become liberated from the conditional state of material life due to an entanglement in the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. These people that are speculating on initiation should just listen. Try to be humble. Don't just let the mind go off in some kind of dreamlike state. Look, you can walk around in this world and live in a dream. That's the reality of it, because you're not thinking correctly according to Shastra. Prabhupada was trying to elevate us out of this mundane state. So I'm going to read a couple of sections. If you haven't, by the way, if anybody has any questions in regards to these issues, please feel free to reach out to us. There are ways and means to get a hold of us. These classes are more directed to Shastra and to a deeper understanding of the critical aspects of this philosophy. But as far as details on all these things and all the letters from Prabhupada and all the information from the books, etc., it's an ocean of information. And it requires discussion. So we're more than anxious to hear from you, any of you, all of you, in regards to any questions that you have in regards to this philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So please don't be shy. I always tell people that. People come to me, they say, oh, I want to be a singer. I tell them, well, don't be shy. You've got to step up and sing. So if you want to be a devotee, you've got to step up. You've got to ask intelligent questions and look for good answers. And in this way, you can make advancement in spiritual life without any impediments, not like these bogus gurus from ISKCON. That is a big mistake. I'm looking for some letters, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, and we'll put them up in this coming week, dealing with these guru issues, dealing with the Gaudiya Math at the beginning of the classes. But for today, Nilesh Prabhu, I wanted you to go to chapter 7 of the Nectar of Devotion, evidence regarding devotional principles. And I can't read those because I'm busy. Sorry about that. In the 11th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, evidence regarding devotional principles. In the 11th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Prabhupada tells Maharaj Nimi, my dear king, please know for certain that in the material world, there is no happiness. It is simply a mistake to think that there is happiness here. A mistake, because this place is full of nothing but miserable conditions. This is one of my favorite sections of the Nectar of Devotion. Any person who is seriously desirous of achieving real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of a spiritual master is that he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures, like Śrīla Prabhupāda has, by deliberation and arguments, and thus be able to convince others of these conclusions. We have to make Prabhupada disciples by guiding them to Prabhupada's teachings. That is Siksha. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, are to be understood as bona fide spiritual masters, and we all know that. As we read the diaries, we're seeing the actual situation that Prabhupada was going through, overcoming all obstacles to create the Sankirtan mission under the direction of his spiritual master. Everyone should try to find such a bona fide spiritual master in order to fulfill his mission in life, which is to transfer himself to the plane, whether in this body or not this body. You can be transferred even in this body to the spiritual plane. Yes, all of you, it is possible, and we pray for you to do that. To transfer to a plane of spiritual bliss. The purport is that one should not accept as a spiritual master someone who is fool number one, who has no direction according to the spiritual injunctions, like this Giriraj character. Fool number one, whose character is doubtful, who does not follow the principles of devotional service. Bhaktivedanta, so many people on that list, who has not conquered the influence of the 6 sense-gratifying agents. The 6 agents of sense gratification are the tongue, the genitals, the belly, anger, the mind, and words. Anyone who has practiced controlling these 6 is permitted to make disciples all over the world. To accept such a spiritual master is the crucial point for advancement in spiritual life. Crucial. One who is fortunate enough to come under the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master is sure to traverse the path of spiritual salvation without any doubt. We do not want any doubt in our process. Here we'll read another section moving forward, just this next section. To accept initiation, not from the mind, not from a dream, from the spiritual master, and receive instructions from him. Sage Prabhupada continued to speak to the king as follows: "My dear king, a disciple has to accept the spiritual master, not only as spiritual master, but also as the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Super Soul." Very exalted position. Our God brothers should read this carefully. They don't, obviously. In other words, the disciple should not accept the spiritual master, should accept the spiritual master, as God. They use that to mislead people. Very serious, Nilesh, to take on this role and not be qualified to pose, posture, and pretend to be such a person. Because he is the external manifestation of Krishna. This is confirmed in every scripture, and a disciple should accept the spiritual master as such. One should learn Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam seriously and with all respect and veneration for the spiritual master. And Prabhupada is the one who has written the Bhagavatam for our benefit. And now our God brothers have changed the Bhagavatam to suit their nefarious ways of accepting themselves as bona fide representatives of God. You fools! Hearing and speaking Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the religious process which elevates one to the platform of serving and loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The attitude of a disciple should always be to satisfy the bona fide spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, in the line of disciplic succession from Lord Chaitanya and the 6 Goswamis. Then it will be very easy for him to understand spiritual knowledge. Very easy. Simple for the simple, difficult for the crooked. This is confirmed in the Vedas and will be further explained by Rupa Goswami that for a person who has unflinching faith in God and the spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, everything becomes revealed very easily. So I hope this gives us some insight. And again, if you have any questions, please. We'll move forward with the diaries. We'll take up from yesterday. We'll read a few sections from that just to get our mood fixed on the early years of Śrīla Prabhupāda in New York City under such difficult conditions. Remember, he hasn't yet opened Matchless Gifts, the storefront. Okay, so we don't have that today. We see that Nilesh Sharma is not capable of doing it. He's hosting the meeting.
No, we can. Tell me where we want to go in the diary.
Oh, we'll go right now. Oh, so we're going to go. Yesterday we were in June, I think up to about the 11th. I didn't bring I didn't bring my diary with me to Mexico because of the weight of my bags. So I left the larger books, just counting on us to be able to put them on the screen. Can you do that, Prabhu? Put up the diary? Thank you. Okay, so sunrise 4:31 a.m., sunset 4:28 p.m. Astami, today I paid Paul $2 and Carl $20. The total expenditure was $22. I received one letter from Mangala Niloy. He's trying to get him to come and reply to it. Afternoon, there was a Sanskrit class, 5 attended, and the contribution was $2. Eventually, Śrīla Prabhupada dropped us. One letter written to J.N. Wankawala for confirmation. Today, a Sunday, June 12th, the sunrise was 4:30 a.m., sunset was 7:29 p.m., and moonrise was 1:04. Navami, today the eating of the members took place. I cooked 12 different items. 12 different items. And all present, more than 16 ladies and gentlemen ate with great pleasure. Very hard worker, Śrīla Prabhupada was. Very determined, even at his advanced age. The introduction was all right. It was all the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. J.N. Wankawala, letter by airmail posted, expenditures was 50 cents, income 80 cents, contributing $3, $3.80. Monday, June 13th, sunrise 4:30 a.m., sunset 7:29, moonrise 6:27. Dashami, today in the morning class, there was some discussion on friendship and discipleship with Mr. Paul. I could not go out because Paul was not in. So Prabhupada didn't want to leave where he was staying for fear of a break-in or robbery. 2 letters received, one from Chandrasekhar and the other from the Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C., with good results. In the evening, there was a meeting. The attendance was 9 only, but the collection was the poorest, at the same time the highest, because somebody paid in the basket $100. Awesome. Don't you wish you could do that, Vijay Pandit? Put $100 in Prabhupada's basket. Total contribution was $103. There was a book collection of $2, $105. There was no expenditure today. At night, Carl remained with us. Tuesday, June 14th, 1966, New York City, in the Bowery. Sunrise 4:30 a.m., sunset 7:30 p.m., moonrise 1:49, Codicy. In the morning class, Carl, Nelson, and Paul attended the class. Prabhupada's giving a class, 3 people there. Book collection was $7. Paul paid for expenditure $1. No letters received. Bank deposit was $120. At night at about 3 o'clock, Paul left this place, intimating Carl that he would be away for 2 days. Okay, so he's off on a trip, probably LSD. Carl deposited money at the telephone office, as is expected that next day. By Tuesday, there will be telephone connection in my name, in his name. Excellent. $40 paid by Paul for such deposit. And Wednesday, June 15th, we'll end here. Sunrise at 4:30, sunset 7:30, moonrise 2:1. Dwadasi, Carl paid $1 for expenditure. Paul was absent the whole day and night. In the evening, there was a meeting. There were about 12 heads, but the contribution was only $5.50. The other day, $100 contribution is understood to be made by Carl. It is to be paid to Mr. Goldsmith for registration expenses. So Prabhupada's going ahead to set up the Society of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So despite limitations on his visa and all kinds of uncertainty, he's marching forward to complete the mission, which he did. And this movement became very successful. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda. All glories to the Sankirtan movement. We'll move forward with the chanting of Jaya Radha Madhava. So chant along, everyone, with Śrīla Prabhupāda. Please participate. Participate in the program. Don't just sit there and look. And you can listen, of course, but chant along. And then after that, we'll have the reading and discussion of one of our favorite books, the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the Delhi editions, which are progressing very nicely, our printing and distribution of them. And we'll give you more information later after it's completed. And in the meantime, we'll hear Prabhupada sing Jaya Radha Madhava, the bhajan that he so sincerely chanted before every class when he was personally present with us. Hare Krishna.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodā-nandana Dāsa Yasodā-nandana Dāsa Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Founder-Ācārya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Muspat Paramahansa Parivrajaga-Acārya Sattva Small Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupāda ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki Jai Nāma-Acārya Śrī Haridas Thakur ki Jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Śrīvāsadeva Gaur Bhaktamani ki Jai Sri Radha Krishna Mokh Gopinath Sam Khand Radha Khand Girivardhan ki Jai Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Navadvip Dham ki Jai Ganga Mai ki Jai, Jamuna Mai ki Jai, Guru Dwarka Dham ki Jai, Swami Bhaktivedanta ki Jai, all glories to their Swami. All glories to their Swami. Thank you very much.
All glories to you, Śrīla Prabhupāda. Glories to you, Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I do offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskritya. Narayanam namaskritya. Naram cheva narottamam. Naram cheva narottamam. Devim saraswatim vyasam. Devim saraswatim vyasam. Tato jayam mudirayet. Tato jayam mudirayet. One should utter the means of conquest, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead, Narayana, 2, to the Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Śrīla Vyāsadeva, the author. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. As we do every week, we will read a few selected verses from the first chapter, from the second chapter of the first canto, describing the meaning and the benefit of hearing this powerful transcendental literature. We'll be reading from Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 16. Shushrushoho Shraddhadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchihi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipra Punyatirthanishevanat. O the twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vices, all ranges of vice, a standard of great service is done. And as the result of such great service, affinity in the messages of Vāsadeva is made possible. Text 17. Srinvatam svakata Krishna punyasravana kirtana ridyantasto hyabadrani vidunoti surit satam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge for hearing his, Krishna's messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Text 18. Nashta prayeshu avabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in the Bhagavatam class or rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious in the heart of a candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil, and thus loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, comes into being an irrevocable fact. Text 19. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalo bhadayaschaye chetaye terana viddam stitam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is fixed up in one's heart, at that time the effects of the nature's mode of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire and hankerings, etc., do disappear from one's heart, and he becomes fixed up in a mode of goodness, which makes him completely happy. Text number 20. Evam prasanna manasu bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus, when one is positively fixed up in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the enlivened-minded man affected by contact of devotional service of the Lord can positively know scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Today we will be reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5. I believe we're at text number 37, although it advertised number 36. I believe we read number 36 last week. Text number 37. All synonyms, translation, and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Om Namo Bhagavati Tubhyam Vāsudevāya Dhīmahi Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya Nama Samkarshanaya Cha. Om, the sign of chanting transcendental glory of the Lord. Namo, offering obeisances unto the Lord. Bhagavate, unto the personality of Godhead. Tubhyam, unto you. Vasudevaya, unto the Lord, the son of Vasudeva. Dhimahi, let us chant. Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshana, all plenary expansions of Vasudeva. Translation by Śrīla Prabhupāda. Let us all chant the glories of the Vasudeva, along with his plenary expansions, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshana. Purport by His Divine Grace, Śrīla Prabhupāda. According to Pancharatra, Narayana is the primeval cause of all expansions of Godhead. They are Vāsadeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Vāsadeva and Sankarshana are in the middle, left and right. Pradyumna is on the right of Sankarshana, and Aniruddha is on the left of Vāsadeva. And thus, the four deities are situated. They are known as the four aides-de-camp of Lord Sri Krishna. This is a Vedic hymn or mantra beginning with Omkar Pranava, and as such, the mantra is established by the transcendental chanting process, namely Om Namo Dimahi, etc. The purport is that any transaction, either in the field of fruitive work or empiric philosophy, which is not ultimately aimed at transcendental realization of the Supreme Lord, is considered as useless endeavors. Nārada ji has therefore explained the nature of unalloyed devotional service by his personal experience in the development of intimacy between the Lord and the living entity by gradual process of progressive devotional activities. Such progressive march of transcendental devotion for the Lord culminates in the attainment of loving service of the Lord, which is called prema, in different transcendental variegatedness called rasas, mellows. Such devotional service is also executed in mixed forms, namely mixed up with fruitive work or empiric philosophical speculation. Now, the question which was raised by the great rishis, headed by Shaunaka, about the confidential part of Suta's achievement through the spiritual masters is explained herein by chanting hymn consisting of 33 letters. And this mantra is addressed to the four deities of the Lord with his plenary expansions. The central figure is Lord Sri Krishna, because the plenary portions are his aides-de-camp. The most confidential part of the instruction is that one should always chant and remember the glories of the Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with his different plenary portion expended as Vāsadeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. These expansions are the original deities for all other truths, namely either Vishnu Tattva or Shakti Tattvas. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaham Namaum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shigurave Namaha Bhagavad Vandanam Khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sarkara Yuktam Kadate Hi Visheshataha Adadana Strinam Danter Idam Yachi Punaha Punaha Śrīmad-Rūpa-padam bhoja dhulishyam janma janmani amsho bhagavatosmyaham sadadaso asmi sarvata tat kripa pikshako nityam tat preshta sat karomisvam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. In the Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 4, Text 11, Lord Krishna describes Yeyatamam prapadyante tam stateva bhajamyaham. All of them, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Now, this is very important because sometimes there's a misunderstanding that if one engages in the process of devotional service, then what will he do for solving the problems of life? Here we go. Prabhupada explains here, all of them, as they surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Prita. And Prabhupada explains, everyone is searching for Krishna in the different aspects of his manifestations. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahma Jyoti effulgence and as the all-pervading supersoul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. But Krishna is only fully realized by his pure devotees. Consequently, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization, and thus anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. So this is very important because we see that different transcendentalists are aspiring for spiritual enlightenment, are aspiring for spiritual realization. The yogis are aspiring to various bodily exercises, pranayam. The jnanis are aspiring to understand the Vedas and the Upanishads through philosophical searching. But the highest level is to understand Krishna through the process of bhakti, the process of natural, loving, devotional service. This is the natural tendency of every living entity. Everyone nowadays, with the use of technology, we can see so many things. Recently, a devotee sent me a picture of a young girl. She must have been maybe 5 or 6 years old, and she goes in the field and deals with the cows. The cows are very gently coming to her, trying to move their necks towards her in the hope that she will pet their necks. And in a loving way, she rubs the cow. Although this is an animal, we can see that they still have feelings, natural feelings of affection. And so many other animals are the same way. Even fierceful animals like lions, tigers, jaguars, cheetah, which are very powerful animals, you can see that they also display this sentiment, this tendency for affection, for kindness, for closeness with their small children. Now, where is that tendency coming from? That is the tendency of the soul. The soul is looking for affection. It's looking for kindness. But in the material world, that so-called search for affection ends in frustration. There's a very interesting verse from the Padma Purana, which Śrīla Prabhupāda used to often quote. It is described that the yogis, Ramante yoginanante satyananda chidatmani iti Rama padenaso param brahma abhidhyate. What this means is that great yogis, maybe even Neil Prabhu can find this verse, Ramante yoginanante, that yogis who are engaged in the pursuit of the absolute truth, here we go, Ramante yoginanante satyananda chidatmani iti Rama padenaso param brahma abhidhyate. The supreme absolute truth is called Rama because the transcendentalists take pleasure in the unlimited true pleasure of spiritual existence. Now, this is significant because Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita that in order to give up a lower pleasure, one has to experience a higher pleasure. This is natural. Param drishtva nivartante. This is the natural tendency of human being. And the highest pleasure that one can experience in this life is to reestablish one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Now, this particular text of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Prabhupada explained it very nicely in the 3rd paragraph. The purport is that any transaction, either in the field of fruitive work or empiric philosophy, which is not ultimately aimed at transcendental realization of the Supreme Lord, is considered as useless endeavors. In this world, everyone is very busy trying to find pleasure in so many ways. People work very hard to maintain their families or to maintain themselves. There are so many endeavors for sense gratification, but ultimately, by the nature of this material body we have, it ends up in difficulties. That's why Lord Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, Dukkalayam asasvatam. The nature of this world is temporary, asasvatam, and dukkalayam. There is misery here. But nobody wants miseries. Nobody gets up in the morning and prays to God, oh, send me some more misery. No. Everybody is looking for relief from miseries. This is very important. Here we go. This is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 15. Lord Krishna says, Mamupetya punarajanma dukkalayam asasvatam napnuvanti mahatmanaha samsiddhim paramam gatim. Let's see how Prabhupada translates this. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. So as we were discussing, in this material world, although the tendency is everyone wants to enjoy, no one wants to suffer, but yet we get a very different result. Wherever you are, just like right here on this screen, we have people from Mexico, people from America, people from different countries, from India, from Nepal, and everyone is looking for some pleasure, for some satisfaction. But when we carefully analyze what is going on in this world, it is not very happy. Everyone knows the conditions right now in human society in different places like the Middle East or in Ukraine. There is conflict. There is strife. This is the position in the material world. Everyone is looking for happiness. because that is the natural tendency of every living being. This is the natural position. In the Vedanta Sutra, it is described, Anandamayo Vyāsāt, the nature of the soul is Ananda, transcendental pleasure. Everyone is looking for pleasure. Unfortunately, we're looking at it the wrong way. Once we reestablish our connection with Krishna by the process of bhakti, then one can start to experience the real pleasure. And this can be experienced practically by the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So many times we hear persons complaining how there are so many different difficulties in the world. And of course, everyone knows different politicians who claim that they have all the solutions to the problems in the world will bring up so many different points. Here we have our Neil Sharma Prabhu giving us the quote. Those who have seen our temple, we worship Radha and Krishna in jubilation. They are along with the gopis playing the flute and many musical instruments dancing. That is the definition given in the Vedanta Sutra. Anandamayo Vyāsāt means by nature jubilant. There is no moroseness. There is no unhappiness. That is the kingdom of God. And in this life, anybody can experience that transcendental pleasure by taking shelter of a bona fide acharya, bona fide spiritual master. Just like earlier, Vishwakarma Prabhu was reading how one should take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master by the initiation process. Now, recently, we've been hearing different interpretations. Some people say, well, I've accepted Prabhupada in my head, in my mind, in my heart. I've read the book, therefore I'm initiated. There are so many different interpretations based upon people's level of realization. But ultimately, one has to do this on a practical level. Just like if you go to school, you can't just start attending the class at university. You have to go to the admissions office. You have to be admitted as a candidate, as a student. Then you can go to the classroom and start learning from the professor. You cannot demand, oh, I'm very qualified, I'm going to go in this class. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to apply to the admission office to be admitted as a bona fide student. Similarly, in order to progress in spiritual life, one cannot invent or manufacture his own interpretation of how it's supposed to work. While it's true that anybody may have a dream, anybody can read the book. Prabhupada said one time, if they read my books, they're initiated. That's a general statement. But practically speaking, we see and we experience that Śrīla Prabhupāda himself took initiation from his spiritual master, and he recommended that everybody should follow the process. Not a process. The reason why Prabhupada insisted for this is a formal commitment to accept the bona fide spiritual master. This is the process. Prabhupada did fire sacrifices in front of the deities, in front of the Vaishnavas, in front of the spiritual master, in front of Agni, and made people promise that they would follow the regulative principles. They would chant 16 rounds. Prabhupada insisted that this was the formal process. And why do that? Because that signifies a commitment to the spiritual master. Just like if somebody wants to go to university and become an engineer, an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, there's a process. A person just can't take a book off the shelf and say, I'm going to read the engineering book, and then he wants to go get hired to basically design a bridge or a skyscraper. It doesn't work that way. One has to go to school and learn from the professor. Similarly, Tasmat Gurum Prapadyeta Jignashu Sreyottamam. If one wants to get the ultimate benefit of the human form of life, one has to accept the bona fide Acharya. And Śrīla Prabhupada has given a specific system of how he wanted initiations to be continued after his departure, through the officiating Acharya system, by which he would remain the Acharya, the Diksha Guru, or the initiating spiritual master, and representative would carry out, were expected to carry out the formalities of the initiation. Now, we realize that many people have had different interpretations of this, and the controversy still rages on. But just like if you go to a court of law, you can't just come in front of a judge, well, I think this or I think that. Lawyers have to submit evidence from previous cases. In 1969, Śrīla Prabhupada was discussing cooperation with an organization in India called the Chaitanya Mission. So they exchanged some information, and Prabhupada wrote a letter to one Bhagavat Maharaj from this group. And he says, I see from your articles that the Acharya is entitled to nominate his successor in writing. But Prabhupada says, we do not find any record where our Guru Maharaj appointed any Acharya after him. Similarly, in his society, Prabhupada never left any record of appointing one successor, 11 successors, or 1,011 successors. This was a concoction due to false ego and personal ambition. And devotees should be aware of that. Devotees should not be lured into thinking falsely that Prabhupada appointed some initiating acharyas. That is foolishness. As a matter of fact, one of the foremost masterminds of that unauthorized system admitted in Topanga Canyon, California, on the 3rd of December, 1980, here's the letter, the original letter from Śrīla Prabhupada on July 9th, but I'm referring to the Topanga Canyon conversation with Śrīla Prabhupada, where this same individual, the late secretary, admitted this idea that Prabhupada appointed gurus, this is a myth. One should not misconstrue the statements of the Acharya, the spiritual master, for personal aggrandizement. This is very dangerous and very misleading. One should be honest with oneself and honest with others. Then one can make progress very rapidly in spiritual life. Otherwise, it will simply be show bottle. We don't need any more show bottle in this movement. We need people to follow properly and according to Śrīla Prabhupada's instructions. Now here we go. He's got the actual conversation. And then the late secretary says, actually, Prabhupada never appointed any gurus. You have to, okay. He did not appoint 11 gurus. He appointed 11 Ritviks. He never appointed them gurus. Myself and the other GBC have done the greatest disservice in this movement the last 3 years, because we interpreted the appointment of Ritviks as the appointment of gurus. And a little bit later on, there was a statement, this appointment is a myth. We're not interested in mythology. We are interested in factology, actual facts. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Yes, very well explained today's verses for us. And I thought it was interesting, Prabhus, that Yaśodā-nandana made an example of an engineer taking on the role of an engineer but not being qualified. So what happens? As you know, engineers construct bridges. There's usually a team of engineers, and they just construct bridges. But if the engineer is not qualified to construct the bridge, then under stress, guess what happens? The bridge breaks. And if the cars are on the bridge, they all go down into the sea, and everyone dies. So like that. If you have unqualified engineers, unqualified gurus who take up the process of Krishna consciousness and are not qualified to teach according to the disciplic succession, they and their organization will fall. And all the members that are on that bridge with them will also go down. This is a serious matter, to accept the role as a representative, an Acharya of Śrīla Prabhupāda, when you're not. And here we read, very interestingly, that the GBC was never sanctioned to approve gurus. Never. Prabhupada never approved a successor, appointed a successor. Very, very clear. But still people interpret it. They misrepresent the information for their own personal ambition. You know, it's a business, Prabhu, Pirangelo. It's a business. Here we have it. Just read that out, Prabhu. Prabhupada never appointed any gurus. He didn't appoint. This is Tamal Krishna, this American fellow.
Krishna Goswami's word.
Yeah. He actually, Prabhupada never appointed any gurus. He didn't appoint 11. We all knew that. I didn't have to hear it from Tamal. He appointed 11 Ritviks. What does that mean? Well, most people don't have a clue what that means, including these people in ISKCON. They've made it a derogatory term. Yeah. Or you're a Ritvik. Oh, you can't come to this temple. What kind of nonsense is this? He never appointed them gurus. Myself and the other GBC have done the greatest disservice to the movement the last 3 years, 32 now, it's even longer than that now, because we interpreted the appointment of Ritviks as the appointment of gurus. And Ritvik means you're initiating someone on behalf of Śrīla Prabhupāda. You're not initiating them as your disciple. Because look at the role of a person that's a Diksha guru. We read it earlier in the Nectar of Devotion, that they are considered to be the representative of Krishna. And the term Yaśodā-nandana that was used and is being abused in this current society, here we have it here, has its roots in Sanskrit. It's a sacrificial and Vedic tradition. A Ritvik refers to a priest who officiates at rituals and sacrifices. Well, at the fire sacrifice for initiation, particularly those related to initiation. The term is closely linked with those who perform sacred rites. Well, it's not closely linked, it is. This is GP explanation. But the fact of the matter is that the GBC have never been sanctioned. What was, Nilesh, the goal of the GBC under Prabhupada's direction? Well, their purpose was to go around to the temples. And by the way, in the early years, the GBC never showed up. I think for some time, this Rupanuga fellow, who's like living in this world, well, I was one of the first disciples. Look at how great I am. Look at how smart I am. He never came around to the Canadian Yatra. He was the GBC. I never saw him once. Now, the GBC was supposed to go around and review the programs of the temple and how it was operating, how the classes were being conducted. They could listen to them and see, is this being presented properly? They were supposed to be representing Prabhupada in a managerial role. And then they would also check the bookkeeping. Oh yeah, we'll see how you noticed in our diary readings how carefully Prabhupada was managing the income and expenditures for the Lakshmi that he was receiving, meticulously, every penny. So he also wanted that same type of diligence in the operation of his temples. So he thought, okay, I'll appoint these people, these so-called senior devotees. Prabhupada was trying to take the best of who he thought was committed and have them go around and simply check out the bookkeeping and make sure that everything was going on nicely. The temple president was in charge of the temple, and they were in charge of cultivating new people with their community of devotees and making disciples for Śrīla Prabhupāda, not the GBC. The GBC, for example, in Toronto, Gopal Krishna couldn't chant at all. He could barely stay awake when he was in a meeting. It was embarrassing. He had such a big operation going there, hundreds and hundreds. I had a committee of 25 Eastern Indian leaders in Toronto after we purchased the temple, and Gopal Krishna is there sleeping in the meeting. I'm thinking, oh my God, how did this guy get in this role as a GBC? It was pathetic. He couldn't speak. Hardly he could articulate the philosophy to us. Everybody was falling asleep in the classes. He never went on Harinam. He never distributed one book, but he was in charge. It was a farce. It was pathetic. But this went on, just like these people nowadays that are projecting themselves as so-called GBCs. And then Gopal at the end, he was always saying before he died, and he mentioned it in his will, that you should never leave ISKCON, and that the GBC is the ultimate authority. Total misinformation. Don't be brainwashed by this, brothers and sisters. This is misinformation by these people. And this is exactly what Tamal Krishna was telling us. This is not an authorized system. It is a hoax. And these bridges that are built by engineers that are not qualified will crash. And these groups, like the Bhakti Charu group and the Gopal Krishna group, they will also crash because they are not following the proper philosophical position of initiation given by Śrīla Prabhupada to his bona fide disciples. This will crash, Nilesh, guaranteed. Now, even in the Gaudiya Math, we have people that have come from our mission, this Jadharani lady, and now she's competing to become the head of the Gaudiya Math, I heard. Okay, we'll have fun with your short term here in this world and carry on according to your karma. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, if you could further elaborate.
Well, thank you for these various points. And I do know that there was a very important conversation that Śrīla Prabhupada had with one of his disciples named Śyāma-Sundar Das. This was compiled a book called Dialectical Spiritualism. Dialectical Spiritualism. These are conversations about Mao Zedong and the Russian and Chinese communist system. I'm going to read a few excerpts. Devotee, the Chinese scoff at the Russians that they're not communists. They say we will not abide by this different manager, only one pay scale for everybody. Śrīla Prabhupada, first of all, this communistic idea came from Russia and China imitated. Devotee. Well, it came out of the proponent philosophers. Śrīla Prabhupāda. Anyway, the Russia is supposed to be the leader of the communistic idea. Devotee. They don't accept anymore. There is Mao. Śrīla Prabhupada. Similarly, sometimes after, he will not be accepted. That is my proposition. As Russia is not accepted now, some days after, he will not be accepted. Similarly, your also theory will fail. That is my proposition, because I challenge that your theory is not perfect. Because Russia's theory was not perfect, it has failed. Similarly, I say your theory is also imperfect. Therefore, it will fail. Anything imperfect will fail. That is my proposition, devotee. His propaganda is that it is perfect because it has made the Chinese people, Śrīla Prabhupada. Propaganda. By propaganda, you can do anything. That is different thing, but fact is fact. If your theory is not perfect, you make however propaganda, it will fail. Devotee, but our people are all employed, they're all clothed nicely. Śrīla Prabhupada, temporarily it may be very glittering, just like the polished thing. Temporarily it looks very brilliant, shine, but in course of time it will become black. That's all, because it is not actually shining. Gold shining and artificial shining, there is difference. Devotee, he says that these class conflicts can be resolved through prosecution and repression of counter-revolutionaries at home. Śrīla Prabhupada, that is going on. It is not a new thing that in order to establish peace, you kill somebody. Devotee, if there is any counter-revolutionaries, you prosecute or repress them. Śrīla Prabhupada, that is going on. That is not a new thing. That is going on in the animal kingdom. What is the use of your philosophy? Without having philosophy, just one second here. By philosophy, you give something which will not create any conflict. But by conflict, by crushing, by subduing, if you want to establish your peace, then what is the value of this peace? This is very similar to the situation we saw after the departure of Śrīla Prabhupada in 1977 on November 14th. The idea of some of the leaders by force, by might is right, they tried to dominate and subjugate the devotees into this bogus, nonsensical idea, this unproven idea that Prabhupada had appointed them as 11 successors and 11 Diksha Gurus. People should not be fooled into this nonsense rascaldom. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Well, this goes on. Misinformation is common. We're going to move forward with our panel discussion with Ron Singh's going to comment, and Nilesh, of course. So but I wanted to say this, that a lot of times the neophyte, now a neophyte means someone that's new, that's inexperienced in the discipline, but they have an opinion, okay? The opinion is different than fact. So what they do, Prabhus, is they speculate on this philosophy. A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. And then, not only do they speculate, they fault find Prabhupada's disciples. Yes, they do. And they criticize them. They tell, and their so-called gurus also blaspheme us. They also fault find us. Yes, we are not fault finders. We are fact finders. There is a big difference between a fault finder and a fact finder, but they distort that because of their personal motives. Misinformation, Trilok. It's misinformation campaign, brainwashing in the real essence of the term. We're not brainwashers. We're fact finders. And we're not trying to disturb the disciplic succession. We're trying to preserve the disciplic succession. And the neophytes will speculate. Oh, yes, they will. Oh, it should be this or it should be. Yeah, they have no idea what the philosophy is, but they've got an opinion. We are not opinionators. We are fact finders. Understand that. And here, Trilok, is the point. Prabhupada told us, critically study these books. Critically. Now, someone could say, well, you're repeating the same thing. No, we're not. We're not repeating. Look, I read from the Nectar of Devotion earlier, Prabhu, Nilesh. Was I repeating the same thing? I was repeating from the Nectar of Devotion. We've been reading all these different quotes, all this different philosophy in support of what we're saying. We're not manufacturing things. A lawyer doesn't walk in the courtroom and think, I think the law is this. These people, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu knows, they're afraid to discuss with us. We're prepared. Please, I beg you to call me. Let's see if you're equipped, Mr. Bhakti Vikash in the Krishna, whatever the heck it is in Atlanta, Krishna Life. Call me up. You think you're so smart. What is real intelligence? You repeat what you've heard from your spiritual master. If you can't do that, you're making it up. This whole thing is a hoax, everyone. A colossal hoax. And we should understand that. And don't be afraid, ever. Of course, if I went to India, it might be some danger for me. But that's different. But this thing is very serious. And that's why we're insisting. One sec. Ron Singh, maybe you could give us some insight from this. They, the so-called GBC men, never allowed the direction of management established in 1970. And by the way, in our future, we'll get up that letter of direction of management and let everyone hear about it from Prabhupada. So whenever they call GBC is another fraud, just like they change books. Ron Singh in Nepal right now.
Haribol, yes, I'm in Nepal. So I just want to bring some awareness to the devotees so they can actually understand Śrīla Prabhupada's management system, which he had established in July 28, 1970. It's called the Direction of Management. And Śrīla Prabhupada always referred to this direction of management over the years. He also wrote, I think it was 1973 or 1974, to make sure that this direction of management, which was signed by Rupanuga, Karandara, and Bhagavan. So Śrīla Prabhupada, with this document, establishes the management system of his society, which he created. And then he referred to this document over the various years from 1970 all the way till 1977. So devotees should refer to that document and actually figure out what is
Here it is on the screen, Prabhu. Here it is on the screen. If you want to read, can you see it? Can you read it a bit?
Yeah, I can see it here. One second. It's a long document, so I would recommend that devotees to read it, and then various names are there. And if you go down, you can see all the temples here. These are all the names.
Yes.
These are the people that were responsible. And then he discusses about what is the actual responsibility of the GBC members and how they're to be elected. So all the devotees here should familiarize.
Hold on, Ron, let me read this. Particulars
Prabhu,
of
yeah.
the Governing Body Commission, because I was talking about that, Prabhus. 1, the GBC oversees all operations and management of ISKCON as it receives direction from Śrīla Prabhupāda, and His Divine Grace has final approval in all matters. 2, His Divine Grace will select the initial 12 members of the GBC. In the succeeding years, the GBC will be elected by a vote of all temple presidents. They completely removed the temple presidents from any position of authority, Prabhus. They ruined it. Who will vote for 8 from a ballot of all temple presidents. Never did that, which may also include any secretary who's in charge of the temple. Those 8 with the greatest number of votes will be members for the next term of the GBC. What a sin! It's revolting to see how they've changed all the directions. Śrīla Prabhupada will choose to retain 4 commissioners in the event of Śrīla Prabhupada's absence. The retiring members will decide which 4 will remain. Now, Prabhupada did change this, but at this time, he said the commissioners will serve for a period of 3 years, and they may be re-elected at the end of this period. That was a very simple way to look at it in order to avoid corruption. That's why you do that. That's why governments change. You avoid corruption. Now it's totally corrupted. The chairman is elected by the GBC for each meeting. He has no veto power, but even of a vote tie, his vote will decide. The same will apply for votes cast by mail between regular meetings throughout the year. Each of the commissioners will stay with His Divine Grace for 1 month at a time and keep the commissioners informed of His Divine Grace's instructions. He's trying to personally teach them. The primary objective of the GBC is to organize the opening of new temples and to maintain the established temples. Advice will be given by the GBC in case of real property purchases. All administration, Prabhus, not transcendental direction, which will be in the name of ISKCON Inc. Trucks or other vehicles will be purchased in the name of the local president. I should say in terms of philosophical issues, in terms of Guru Tattva. Removal of a temple president by the GBC requires support by the local temple members. The GBC has no jurisdiction in the publication of manuscripts, which will be handled by a separate committee. Profits returned to Śrīla Prabhupāda. So far, my books are concerned, I'm setting up a different body of management known as Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. The trustees of this body are also members of the GBC, but their function is not dependent on the GBC. ISKCON Press was created for the exclusive publication of my books and literatures and should be continued in that way. During my absence, no one shall live in my apartment. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. And like you said about Ron Singh, Bhakta Ron Singh, people can go to these letters, they can review them, very insightful. And we are fact finders, not fault finders. Nilesh Sharma, please. You have some
Hare
questions
Krishna.
for Yasoda.
Hare Krishna, Jai Śrīla Prabhupada. At this juncture, I would like to invite anybody who is non-English speaking, if they have any questions, to question us in that language, in that particular language, just to try out to see how worldly would function. So if you can please, if anybody has any questions, especially those who are non-English speaking. Anybody wants to ask any questions?
Let's try somebody from Italy. Vijaya Pandit, please ask a question. Come on.
And please talk slowly. Anybody?
Maybe you can ask the question in Hindi. Nilesh Prabhu.
Unfortunately, I have already signed up with English so that I'm sharing the screen. So when somebody talks in another language, it'll come up as you see in the translation. I mean, in the transcripts. Nobody wants to ask a question?
Vijaya Pandit, can you ask a question in Italian, please?
Allora, volete che vi faccia una domanda in italiano? Regina, che domande vi facciamo?
Oh, it's coming in
Ehm,
Italian over here.
Si capisce? Io sto parlando in italiano. Vi traduce in inglese? Come la traduzione?
Okay, it's translating in it. It's giving it in the Italian language and not translating in English. So we'll have to look into that.
All right, then I have a question to Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, that he was mentioning that the spiritual master, we have to go through a formal process of admission, just like how we get admitted into the college. When the spiritual master is not physically present, how does one officially get admitted into the institution? If you can shed some light on that particular aspect, because we are always inundated with something called living guru and how we should, be only with a living guru, because of course, when the person is living, you can talk to him and he can say that, yes, I'm accepting you as my disciple. So what happens when the spiritual master is physically unmanifested? Vishwakarma Prabhu, if you want to answer that, Prabhuji. Vishwakarma Prabhu, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Prabhupada actually still lives in sound, as we all know, that the spiritual life is transcendental, not based on bodily conception. And it is possible for the disciplic succession to continue by people being accepted as Prabhupada disciples according to the rules and regulations that he set up for us to follow. And that's why we're on a campaign, Prabhu, to find new people who are qualified to get initiation to the disciplic succession according to Prabhupada's instructions. And this is called, and because we were with Prabhupada personally, we're seeing ourselves as responsible to maintain this disciplic succession properly and not by this current ISKCON guru system. So there's two choices. You can go to associate with a Vapu representation of this process, thinking that it's superior. Or you can take shelter of the Vani incarnation of Śrīla Prabhupada as your shelter and help in that process from bona fide disciples who also see Prabhupada living in sound and are able to transmit a correct understanding of this philosophy to these neophyte people so that they can get a proper understanding of this philosophy. So Vani Vapu. The Vapu is important, but more important is Vani. and hearing the instructions of the spiritual master and following them carefully, this is the proper way to take shelter of the spiritual master. Nilesh, please.
Yes, so the idea is, Prabhupada has very clearly mentioned in his letters, in his memorandum of direction of how management, about how things will be conducted.
Yes.
So there are temple presidents who will oversee the new applicants, who will make sure that they are following the 4 regulative principles, they are chanting their 16 rounds, and they have been following the philosophy, reading the books, and if they are in good standing, it is on the recommendation of the temple president. You see? So even currently, if you look at the way ISKCON runs things, they do go through this whole process, because the letter has to be sent from the temple president to whoever is the initiating so-called guru, and they go about it. So because this framework is not there, there has to be some oversight which needs to make sure that the new applicants are in those lines of what you call requirements, the eligibility requirements. And then once you are in that eligibility requirements, then the initiations would be carried out. So I know that the ISKCON Bangalore group of temples, they do have their temple presidents who go through the similar kind of a situation. But in Prabhupada Disciples Association,
we have a
these
set of
different
rules.
branches. We have these different branches, and if you are close to any of these branches, I'm assuming that anybody who can approach these people, or who can even show regular attendance in these different classes, would go about it. So if you can shed some light on that, Vishwakarma Prabhu.
Okay, well, very good point. So the system is the same. Is the only difference is who is initiating. And, you know, there can be different groups, and if you feel like Bangalore group is good for you and you want to follow that, that's fine, and you follow the rules. We also have a system, and I'll distribute it to our membership in the coming weeks on the rules and regulations that we put up in order to qualify one for initiation, first initiation as a Prabhupada disciple. Being temple presidents, we're following the same system that we followed back then when Prabhupada was personally with us. And we're not changing anything. And really, initiation, Prabhu, real initiation is your commitment. It's not necessarily formal, but formality is also very good. So someone who is committed to Prabhupada as his or her guru, who is a follower of Prabhupada, who's doing their best to make advancement, they can stay as a Prabhupada disciple in purpose. If they want to expand their service, if they want to do more, then they can approach us for the initiation process, and we'll submit the requirements. We have a Brahminical council of devotees, and they will also review the application, because Prabhupada is living with us. There's no question of that. And what we're doing is making sure, in our own specific understanding of this philosophy, how this person is living up to the standard that Prabhupada gave while he was personally with us. And it's self-evident. Like we have our Prabhu Vijaya Pandit in Italy here on the screen. Now, there's no question in my mind, or in Yaśodā or our other group, that he's a Prabhupada disciple. Why? Because by his actions. Not by his words, by his actions. And he does speak, and he shows his such a commitment as a Prabhupada disciple, and he is one. There is no question of that. And we have other people in our group who are of the same mentality. They're Prabhupada disciples. We know the difference between a real Prabhupada disciple and someone who's pretending to be a Prabhupada disciple. Yeah, and we've made mistakes, by the way. We didn't have a rigid process before, for so many years. And a lot of people came and they blooped due to personal purposes, reasons. But we're separating the curd from the milk. We're separating the sincere from the insincere. Sometimes we make mistakes, but is it our mistake? No, it's their mistake because they fail to live up to the commitment that they made, or they failed to understand the commitment they're making to become a formal disciple of Śrīla Prabhupada. Nilesh, go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna. So yes,
Yeah.
so the idea is that there will be a certain screening which will be recommended.
Yes.
And that the type of screening needs to be kind of formalized. But it will be interesting to see is how many of us would be part of this whole process. And I think between you and Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, we can kind of sit down and decide in a more formal way how the whole process would be working. And basically just trying to stick to the original diktats of Śrīla Prabhupada about initiation. And of course, this has been gone over and over again, is that who can initiate? Remember, this discussion I've had with several people is that even if you come across an Uttam Adhikari, can the Uttam Adhikari initiate you? If he's truly an Uttam Adhikari, he will understand that until and unless he is not ordered by his spiritual master, he cannot initiate. Because the Uttama Adhikari is not at all in need for any kind of fame, any kind of importance, he's humble than the blade of grass. So if he's at that particular stage, he will not initiate, even though he's on the Uttama Adhikari platform. He will give you directions, he will give you shiksha, but he'll never give you diksha, because this is what has happened even with
Yes.
Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. When Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj approached him, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji just had one statement. He said, I will have to ask Chaitanya Mahaprabhu if I can initiate you. And that's it. So, Praptasya Kalyana Gunarna Vashya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. So, until and unless you don't receive that that mercy from the ocean of mercy, from the original ocean, through the disciplic succession, how can you distribute it to anybody? So, even though you are an Uttam Adhikari, that does not give you the license to initiate. The license comes from the order. Remember, it is the order. Nobody wants to do it because it is a position of great responsibility. Think about
Yes.
it. It is a position of great responsibility. So those who are there, they say, I will, if it is ordered. That is why Guru Mukha Padma Vakya. If my Guru says that you can initiate, I will initiate, even though if I have to take sins from the conditioned souls so that Krishna can give them a clean slate, I will suffer their sins. So imagine the seriousness associated with this position. So do not confuse yourself with an Uttam Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, or Kanishta Adhikari. Whoever you are, nobody can initiate until you are ordered by your spiritual master. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Prabhus, and I wanted to mention to you, I've been at various times in a position of responsibility in the ISKCON movement. I've also been a leader in many fields throughout my life. And I've been approached on multiple occasions to initiate people. Okay? Now, Nilesh, this is what happens. Someone comes up to you and they go, oh, you're so smart, you're so wonderful. I want to give you some money too. If you initiate me, I'll give you $5,000. People do that. You know that, Nilesh. Even in ISKCON, they charge money for initiation. Person has to learn how to deliver the right response when this happens. When you're approached, it's not difficult. Here's the answer I give them. Prabhupada is your guru. That's as simple as it is. He lives in his Vani incarnation. He is personally present in his books, in his lectures, in his instructions. You follow the instructions. You study his books critically. Associate with bona fide devotees. We have an organization, the Prabhupada Disciples Association. Come to our classes. Take up the service. We also have ambitious plans for book publication, as you know. I'm not revealing, but we have plans. We don't know how Krishna will help us, but we have that desire. And then you become a Prabhupada disciple. We have an initiation process. We had a review process before, but we've had many people fail. Yashoda's initiated maybe 15, 20 people. I don't know what the list is, but it's quite a few. And these people turned around and stabbed us in the back due to their hypocrisy, their confusion, their blasphemy. Okay. That doesn't bother us. We're not here for self-aggrandizement. We're not here for money. We don't need it. Krishna has blessed us. And we understand what it means to help people become Prabhupada disciples. There's nothing greater than that. Prabhupada used to tell us this when I was a child. Decorate yourself with a garland of devotees. That's what you do. How many devotees did you make for the disciplic succession? Not how many devotees did you make for yourself? It's just such a simple thing. And then you feel free. You're exonerated of any karmic implication that comes with initiation. Nilesh, do you realize, and I know you do that, so I shouldn't have said it like that, but do you realize that a person that accepts initiations has to accept the karma of all of their disciples? Do you think you're that qualified? I can barely deal with my own karma. This Radhanath fellow, he was involved in a murder. No question. There's proof. That's a fact. You can deny it. You can be fooled. You can be misinformed, but he was still involved in the murder of Sulochan. The money had his fingerprints on it that was given to Tirtha to run away to India. And when he went to India, you know where he stayed, Nilesh? The murderer of Sulochan stayed at the Goshala in Vrindavan, where my friend and godbrother Drupada was there as the manager. Do we have proof? Yeah. Do we want to talk about it so much? No. But it's a fact. We are taking shelter of Śrīla Prabhupada. We are making disciples for Śrīla Prabhupada, and we want to teach our colleagues how to take shelter of Śrīla Prabhupada in his instructions, his books, and everything else that he's doing. And in this way, they will be successful, and they'll be able to continue this process and learn how to do it themselves, and this movement will carry on without any disturbance. It's that simple. So, Nilesh, thank you very much. I really appreciate the dialogue. I don't want us to carry on. If anyone has any questions, please just call us. It's common sense. It's not difficult to understand. Prabhupada is living with us in his Vani incarnation. That is the point. Vani in sound. This is yoga. This is not hatha yoga where you've got good exercises. It is not philosophical. It is bhakti yoga. And that bhakti comes out in Shravanam Kirtanam. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. We'll move forward now with the chanting of Hare Krishna. Please chant along. And it's only 2.5 minutes, and then we'll have our closing section. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanam pavenibhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Thank you everyone for attending this weekly program. We'll see you next week for Chaitanya Charitamrita class on Thursday, Saturday morning Bhagavad Gita class, and Sunday Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. All glories to the Sankirtan movement. All glories to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, who lives in His words. He lives in His Vani incarnation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.